record. Okay, I think we're live. All right, well, hello, everyone. I'm going to have to turn off sound here for a second. Okay, there we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this day one of our Happy Whole-idays challenge. Now, I'd like to go live. I don't go live every single day for the entire 3 weeks of our challenge, but when we do these 3-week challenges, I will often go live for the first 4 to 5 days, and then sporadically throughout the challenge. Almost always, the first day, this day is the longest one. I try to do it in the afternoon so that more people can make it live. If you can't make it live, that's okay. You're going to be watching this on a recording. I'll put it on YouTube so that and post a link to that so people can watch it whenever they can. I encourage you to watch the whole 15 to 20 minutes of this video because it's the story of how 90-10 started and how I got to kind of understand lower ingredient, clean type eating, and there's also this little quiz that I do at the end, so I encourage you to watch all the way to the end because it usually is very eye-opening for people. So I hope that this video gives you some of the good information that you need to feel like you can do this challenge. I just want to reiterate, please don't feel like you have to be perfect right now. We're going to learn for the first 3 or 4 days of this challenge. I didn't even ask you to do a meal plan yet or anything, and I know most people come into a challenge that starts on Monday and you're like, okay, it's a 3-week clean eating challenge. I got to eat clean today. And it's like, I want this to be about education and learning and, working your way into things more than about, okay, it's day one, let's be perfect, okay? Now, I know some of you don't operate like that, and you're going to be like, no, I have to be perfect right now. And you just do the best you can. And if perfection is the best you can and you're going to nail it, then great. If not, please, 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 please go easy on yourself, okay? All right, so here's what I want to do today. I want to talk about how I started 90-10 Nutrition, and I want to talk about a little bit about my childhood. When I do this talk, I feel a little bit like Chunk from the Goonies. Hopefully some of you are similar age to me, and Goonies was an iconic movie for you. I know some of you might be a little older, a little younger, but Chunk in the Goonies, when he's telling they tell him to tell them everything, and he starts telling stories about a play where they threw vomit over the side, and everybody started throwing up on each other, and he tells them like way more than total childhood and everything. So that's sometimes what I feel like when I do this talk, because I'm going to show you some pictures of childhood and how I grew up, because it relates to how I came to the conclusions that I came to, and it might relate to you. You might be like, oh my God, like that's how I've been for the last 20, 30, 40 years, whatever, okay? So I'm going to share my screen with you here if I can. There it is. Share that. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen. You should be able to see a picture of me. And actually, you know what? I am going to stop that just for a second and go make sure that there's no problems, that people are actually able to hear me and see me. I'm looking on the Facebook group and I don't see any comments or anybody saying that they can't hear me. So I think we're okay. All right, so I'm going to get back to this. So share my screen again. There we go. Okay, so you should be able to see a picture of me. I'm kind of like highlighted a little bit down in the lower right-hand corner. That is me playing Little League. My dad is actually the guy on the far left there, and then my older brother is the skinny kid 2 in from my dad in the back row. I grew up overweight, basically. I grew up shopping in the Husky section. I grew up, just like you see me right there, I was always overweight. And in fact, what's interesting is I never really realized that I was to the extent that I was. I always thought that the 2 kids behind me who were twins in this picture were actually the overweight kids on the team, and I thought I was just a little overweight. And when I look back on these pictures, it's like I'm kind of the most overweight one on the team. But I grew up like this, and I was one of 6 kids. So that's my older brother. I have 4 younger siblings, not pictured, who, so my mom had 6 kids basically. And she was running around like crazy, and she didn't grow up in a house where cooking was a major thing anyway. I think my grandma had 4 recipes or something like that. And so the combination of that was essentially that nutrition was on the go type of thing. Maybe some of you can relate to this, but this is, 80s, late 80s, early 90s. And our nutrition consisted of going to Costco, buying food in bulk. And when I say food, I mean like frozen corn dogs, frozen bagel bites. We'd buy hamburger helper, Pop-Tarts. We had a couple of recipes that it consisted of basically a jar of spaghetti sauce and some meat, and throw some noodles together, which, is not that bad, but we had very few recipes. It was hamburger helper. I knew how to make macaroni and cheese, Kraft macaroni and cheese out of the box when I was like 8. I could make it myself. I didn't even need measuring. I kind of just knew the amounts, which means I probably put too much. But that was our nutrition. And maybe some of you can relate to that type of nutrition: hamburger helper, rice-a-roni, stuff out of the box, right? Not like straight from recipes, fresh food. That was how I grew up. So this is a picture of me when I'm probably, 13 or 14 years old. And then this is a picture of me in college. And I'll tell you, between that picture and that picture, Little League and 13, 14 years old, I bet you I lost 20, 30 pounds 3 or 4 different times on different diets. I remember being 12 years old, eating at Taco Bell on a 1,200 calorie diet. I would actually ask for the nutritional information at Taco Bell so that I could keep under 1,200 calories because I was on a diet. Eating at fast food, eating Pop-Tarts, eating things like that, but trying to stay under 1,200 calories when I'm like 12 years old. I don't know how you guys feel, but I don't think 12-year-olds should have to count calories. My parents weren't making me do that, but I wanted to lose weight, and so that was the way that I knew how. 1,200 calories, and I would lose weight. And it would work, but it would be horrible. It was eating processed food and trying to keep under a certain amount of calories. It kind of went back and forth like that until college. And here I am, 265 pounds in college. After I graduated from college, I gained another 15 pounds or 10 pounds or so to 275, because then I had actually had money to eat even more of the things that I had gotten used to, which in college was Doritos and Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew at midnight while studying and all kinds of stuff like that. And of course, pizza and beer and the typical college things. And so I ended up at 275 pounds. Now, what I did about that is I decided after I met my wife and I was going to go get married, that I needed to do something about that. And so I went on a 1,500 calorie diet for an entire year. 1,500 calories for a year. And I lost basically 100 pounds over that year. It was horrible. This is me at my wedding, down like 75 or 80 pounds from that past picture. But 1,500 calories, if any of you have ever been on these 1,500 calorie diets, 1,200 calorie diets, you can lose weight, but you're constantly waiting for it to be over, constantly going to bed hungry, constantly feeling like you're deprived, constantly feeling like you're hungry, right? All the time. And this was me for like a year. I had this big goal. I was going to look like this by my wedding. I wanted to do this. I wanted to do that. And I lost 100 pounds that way, but it was hard, right? Like it was hard in not the way that it should be hard, right? Here's kind of a comparison picture between the college picture and more like now. Another picture here, comparison picture. So I lost a bunch of weight, but I lost all this weight doing the 1,500 calorie diet thing, right? And so then there was a turning point. I just couldn't do this 1,500 calorie diet thing anymore. I was doing triathlons and starting to get into marathon training and things like that, because now I was thinner and I felt like, man, I could really do this kind of stuff. And so I started training, and the only way I knew how to lose weight was to eat 1,500 calories or less. But if you've ever tried to train for a marathon or do any kind of, physical activity that's strenuous, low calories and strenuous activity doesn't go together. So then I would, eat everything in sight because I just went on a 10-mile run. And then I would start to gain weight, even though I was training for marathons. It was crazy. I was like, why is this happening? And so one day I saw a post on Facebook, and the guy said on Facebook, this was actually through Tony Horton, the guy who did P90X, a friend of his wrote this long post. It's back when you could do notes on Facebook. You might still be able to, but lots of people used to do notes on Facebook. That was like the longer version of a post. And he said, hey, instead of counting your calories, count ingredients and keep your ingredients low. And I thought, man, what is that? Does that really work? And what are you even talking about? And so here's what he said in the post. He said, let me give you an example. Here's a breakfast, a snack, and a lunch for a typical person on a low-calorie diet. And I looked at these foods and I was like, you know, this isn't too far off from what I eat. I don't really love cereal, but I would eat something similar, you know, like maybe Pop-Tarts or something, or maybe something that's supposedly healthier than Pop-Tarts. But I would have something for breakfast, maybe oatmeal. I'd have the wheat thins, they're baked, they're low fat, you know. I'd have the lean cuisine at work for lunch or whatever. And I was like, okay, what's wrong with that, you know? And he's like, hey, here's the ingredients list for those 3 items. The top paragraph there is the cereal, and then the middle paragraph is the wheat thins, and the bottom paragraph is the ingredients list for a lean cuisine, chicken fettuccine alfredo lean cuisine. Holy crap, right? There's 130 something ingredients in there. Sometimes you can't even count because there's brackets upon brackets upon brackets, like for these different ingredients, right? So, but like 130 something ingredients. And then he says, okay, now check this out. What if I did, you know, some rolled oats and some honey for breakfast, and I had like blueberries for a snack, and then for lunch I just had brown rice, green beans, put some butter on that, and maybe some salt, you know, and then some roasted chicken. What if I just had that? What would that come out to? It's like you can get really close to the same amount of calories, the same amount of fat grams, the same amount of carbs, the same amount of protein, like really close macros, nutritional macros, to the processed food with just 7 ingredients. So 7 ingredients versus 130 ingredients. He said, this is the way you should eat. And I thought, okay, well, let me try that, right? So I did an experiment, summer of 2010, 45 days. I limited my ingredients and not my calories. So I counted my calories to find out what they were, but I didn't limit them. I wasn't like, I'm only gonna eat 1,500 calories. I just ate till I was full, and just was sensible about my portions, you know, not like just stuffing food down my face because if it was low ingredient, you know, I could eat until I was going to puke, just, you know, being reasonable, right? And my average intake came out to 2,300 calories, 800 more than I would normally eat on a diet, thinking I could lose weight. And I still lost 15 pounds in 45 days. And one of the things that was really interesting to me was the fat intake went way up, because I wouldn't eat things like avocados during a 1,500 calorie diet because they're so calorie dense, because fat has 9 grams of, how does that go? 9 calories per gram, instead of like carbs and protein has 4 calories per gram. So, you know, fat, a gram of fat make your calories go up really quick. So I wouldn't eat things like avocados or coconut or anything that had a lot of fat in it. But now I would, because avocado only has 1 ingredient, so I could eat that. My fat intake went way up, my calories went way up, my weight went down. I was like, holy crap, I'm totally sold on this. So what this taught me was that this nutrition facts part of the label that everybody seems to pay attention to, where the calories, the fat, the carbs, the protein grams, the sugar grams are, is not the most important part of the label. This ingredients area over here, where you think you have something good, you have creamy peanut butter, you're like, peanut butter is good for you, right? Has sugar, molasses, hydrogenated vegetable oils, mono and diglycerides, all this stuff in it. And then if you go to something like Adam's 100% natural peanut butter, the nutrition facts label is almost exactly the same. There's hardly any difference in it, but the ingredients are peanuts and some salt, and that's it. There's no sugar, added sugar, molasses, there's no mono and diglycerides, hydrogenated oils. It's just peanuts. That's it. And I found that this makes a huge difference in your overall health, your weight, all those things, if you pay attention to the ingredients label first and the nutrition facts label second. And that's where 90-10 kind of came from. So now here's our little quiz, okay? So I'm going to give you a couple of seconds if there's people watching. I can't really see the Facebook page right now to see if anybody's asking questions, but I will in a second after this quiz. Here's 2 nutrition facts labels, okay? What I want you to do is type in the comments if you're watching this live, or if you're watching the recording of the video that stays in the Facebook group. I want you to tell me which one of these things do you think is healthier? Which one would you pick? Not knowing what it is, not knowing what the ingredients are. If you just had the nutrition facts label and you were going by the macros, the total fat, the carbohydrates, the proteins, calories, Which one of these two things do you think you would pick to eat? I'm going to give you just a second here. I'm going to actually go see if I can go see the Facebook page. See if anybody is saying anything. I don't know how many people are watching live because I'm just kind of going for it. And I will reveal in just a second after I see if anybody has commented. Sometimes people don't make it to this point in the video live. Okay. Back to slideshow. Okay, so if you've got your pick now, we're going to tell you which one is which. The one on the right with 13 sugar grams, 17 carbohydrates, 65 calories is an apple. The one on the left is a Reese's peanut butter cup, a single Reese's peanut butter cup. Ingredients: milk chocolate, sugar, cocoa butter, chocolate, non-fat milk, lactose, more sugar, dextrose, preservatives, all kinds of stuff, right? So I would hope that most of you, after seeing what they are, would probably pick the apple as the healthier thing. But I bet some of you picked the Reese's peanut butter cup based on the macros because it had more protein, it had less carbohydrates, it had less grams of sugar. And so most people would say, oh, well, less sugar, let's go with less sugar, let's go with less carbohydrates, right? So here's the thing. There's a difference between the grams of sugar on your nutrition facts label and added sugar that gets added into the ingredients. Nobody added any white granulated processed sugar into an apple. It just naturally has natural sugar called fructose in it in the makeup of an apple. So they have to list that as sugar grams. But this Reese's peanut butter cup is full of added sugar in the ingredients, and that makes a difference. Okay, so that's just a little quiz to show you how big of a difference it can make to look at the ingredients to see whether your food is healthier for you or not, instead of looking first at the calories, the fat, the carbs, and the protein. Okay, so I'm going to stop this screen share now. That's the overall picture of how 90-10 came to be. In the next live video tomorrow, I'm going to talk in detail about our green, yellow, and red tier system and how that works, and a little bit about our meal planning system so you guys can start getting your first meal plan together. Again, don't stress out. The main thing I wanted you guys to do is kind of plan out your treat stuff, right? So plan out your treats, what you're going to have over the next 3 weeks. So hope that was helpful for you guys, and I will talk to you